Making my own patterns is something I found I really enjoy. I don't have to worry about finding the pattern to be able to recreate a piece I really like. This pattern is for a sheared tier dress that I've had on my project list for a little while now. To guide me through the pattern making process, I'm following a course I bought from a website called DOMESTIKA, and I'm adjusting it a bit. The instructor's pattern was for a dress with just a sheared waist, and I wanted the whole top to be sheared, and my dress to have long instead of short sleeves. The course was really helpful though in showing how to set up your machine to shear, how to do shearing, which was really helpful, and the course was a really good price too. I'll leave a link below if you're interested in checking it out. To make this pattern, I start with a long line down the middle for the length of the bodice, and then add a line at the bottom for my waistline, one in the middle for my bust, and one at the top for my neckline. I use my French curve ruler to make the armhole a little above my bust line and 3 inches in on the neckline. I add my seam allowance to the edges, marking little dots along all the sides as a guide before drawing it out in a solid line. I add extra at the neckline since it's going to be hemmed. To finish it off, I mark out the instructions to fold, write out the seam allowance amount, and the part of the pattern piece, and any other instructions. I actually had to draw the armhole 3 times because I kept measuring the width of the bodice wrong. I found that drawing out the design and using markers to identify and note the measurements for the pattern is so helpful, especially when it comes to making changes later. That information is all right there for me. For the sleeve, I draw a line for the bottom of the sleeve, one going up the middle for the center, and then one along the top for the fullest part of the arm. And then I square it off so I have a big rectangle. I measure up from the top line to mark the armhole and draw it in with my French curve. Then I draw the top of the sleeve and leave the other armhole blank. I'll be adding that on later. I add the seam allowance, labels, and instructions, and then I can cut the patterns out to test them. So to finish off that other armhole of the sleeve, I fold the pattern in half and cut out the other armhole following the one I drew out. This saves me having to draw them both out and they'll match perfectly. So for the muslin or the twill, I used some cheap fabric that I got at the thrift store and put my bodice pattern onto the fold. Pin it in place and cut it out. Pius was having trouble sleeping that evening, so he ended up joining me. He had a lot of fun driving his cars all over my fabric, as you can probably tell. Once both bodice pieces are cut out, I pin and cut out the sleeves. This fabric was honestly kind of hard to cut out because it was so thin and kept like sliding and stretching all over the place. I had to go over a few places so that they actually matched with the pattern. So for the shirring, I wanted to test doing it in a sort of pattern to see how it looked. I'd seen this somewhere else and thought it might look kind of nice as a sort of, I don't know, like design on the top. So I wanted to test it out. I used my water erasable pen to mark out the distance between each row of shirring. Then came the actual shirring part, which is quite a long process, and this is usually when I pull out my earbuds and put on a podcast. So I did one side with the pattern for the shirring, and then the other side I did normally so I could see the difference and see which one I liked. And I ended up liking the normal version better. So I gave it a steam to help the elastic shrink up even more, and then I started on my sleeves. I'm not going to go into too much detail with what I'm doing, as you'll see all that in the next video when I show you the process of putting the actual dress together. So I'm basically getting my sleeve all prepped to put the elastic in the top. Once the elastic is threaded through, I stitch both ends to keep it in place. Then I pin and stitch both sleeves onto one of the bodice pieces. And I repeat the process again for the other bodice piece. Then I pin and stitch the sleeve and bodice side seams together. Measured some elastic for my arm and pressed the sleeve to make a casing. Then I stitched it in place and put my elastic inside. So something weird happened with the neckline, and it was pretty uneven, also with the hem of the bodice as well. So it's gonna have to check my pattern, and I also forgot to hem it first. It's kind of hard, well, impossible to hem after I did the shirring. The sleeves were also much shorter than I wanted them to be, so that was another thing I was gonna have to fix with my pattern. After checking to make sure my bodice pattern was even, it wasn't. I traced it out on my pattern paper, making sure to adjust the issues I had with my test run. I did the same for the sleeve, making it longer and then tracing out the rest of it. And that is a look at how I go about designing, drafting, and testing a pattern for a new piece for my wardrobe. I hope you enjoyed seeing the whole process, and if you did, I would love it if you would give this video a like. Subscribe to stay tuned to see the end result of this sheer dress in my next video. I hope you all are having a lovely day, and I will see you next time.